Okay, step 6. Let's end the madness. There's a ton of information that I'm just glancing over because I just want to get the bullet points down so that we can start to unify. Ending the occupation is the thing about you have to understand about this is a social contract. And what they're doing is interfering with the current social contract that we have with the Constitution. They've implemented military occupation as the temporary social contract that they continue to make temporary every year. Every year they continue to renew any type of national emergency so that they can continue to justify staying in the military occupation or the belligerent occupation. And what we have to do is use our power as the people. So let me just get right into what exactly is their process for ending it. All right, end of occupation. Belligerent occupation ceases when the conditions for its application are no longer met. In particular, as discussed below, the status of belligerent occupation ceases when the invader no longer factually governs the occupied territory, or when hostile relationships no longer exist between the state and the occupied territory and the occupying power. Belligerent occupation ends when the occupying power no longer has effectively placed the occupied territory under its control. For example, an uprising by the local population may prevent the occupying power from actually enforcing its authority over occupied territory. Similarly, the occupied power's expulsion or complete withdrawal from the territory would also suffice because the former occupying power generally would not be able to control sufficiently the occupied territory. Now, I interpret this as this is kind of the stuff they did with the protests, and they kind of controlled those protests. They said that Antifa's on one side and then the people are protesting on the other. They controlled the whole thing from the start. Because again, this is the military construct that has manipulated us for almost 200 years. So they're pretty good at it. And they've controlled the population with so much misinformation on both sides and keep us divided by any means necessary. And that's the true power of what they've done. So when we rise up, we're always rising up on conditions that they control, as opposed to us controlling it as the people. Belligerent occupation also may end when the hostile relationship no longer exists between the occupying power and the state of the occupied territory. Although, as discussed following subsection, certain GC obligations may continue to apply, in that they can continue to occupy certain aspects of the government, depending upon how much, when we do rescind them as occupying the territory, there may be things like management of power and water and things like that that they may continue to control until we get full control of our governance. So, for example, if a new independent government of previously occupied territory assumes control of the territory and consents to the presence of the previously occupied forces, then such a situation would no longer be considered a belligerent occupation. Similarly, if a peace treaty legitimately transfers the territory to the sovereignty of the occupying power, then the occupying power would no longer be characterized as such. However, an occupying power is not permitted under law of belligerent occupation to annex occupied territory. So, what does that mean? And trust me, it goes back and forth through section after section on how to cross-reference that. How I interpret it is that the occupying power or the military government is going to maintain control until a sovereign shows up. I.e., what Trump did do was he transferred the military authority to each of the states, giving the states their military control. Okay, so it's not just the president saying stuff, it's each individual state having the authority govern itself. Now, understand that the state sovereignty is not just because the state has sovereignty. The state has sovereignty because the people gave the state their sovereignty to act on behalf of the people's commonwealth. So that's where our power truly lies, in evoking our power as the sovereigns of the state. So the power is in our hands, but the deception continues to go out there that we got to get this governor to do that, or this politician to do that, and they're not operating in our interest. They're operating in the military interest because they're appointed by the military. The proof of that is the yellow tasseled flag. Every time you see them speak, they are speaking on behalf of their position in the military. When they're in front of a non-tasseled flag, then they are speaking on behalf of the land. But if they're in front of a yellow tassel flag, they are speaking as a military appointed officer. Okay, so, you can get as mad as you want to about the election stuff. It really doesn't matter. There hasn't been a president elected by the people pretty much since the Civil War, because they took it over after that. And after that, they've controlled everything. Now, to the degree of how much they've manipulated it, I'm not sure. But everything that it says in their doctrine of how they operate, they have the power to control everything. Total, complete control of everything. The only obligation they have is to maintain human rights. And that's basically provides you food, shelter, transportation, health care, and religious freedom. And that's it. You don't have to do anything else, which is the biggest problem. Is we don't have economic independence. We're controlled by these corporate giants, and they created this corporate construct that we're all forced to be under. And even something as simple as the Pledge of Allegiance, it says in there that you're not obligated to pledge your allegiance to anybody. But yet we had the Pledge of Allegiance when I was in school growing up, that you had to pledge your allegiance to the flag. That's a gross manipulation of the process, because they're basically saying that you're voluntarily submitting to military jurisdiction. But again, I think there's a big change coming, and this is the time that they have to let us know before they make that change. So this is the time for us to stand up and unite. So I'll get into more details on exactly what we need to do with our petitions in the next video.